To talk on this landmark legislation, we have with us a very accomplished law and public policy expert, Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad, a very well-known senior advocate and a sitting member of parliament, who has been member of parliament for several terms. He has also served as Union Minister for Law and Justice, Information and Broadcasting, Communications and Electronics and Information Technology. Welcome, Ravi Shankar ji, to the Sunset TV studio.
Thank you, Hemant.
Yeah. And the show 75 Years, Laws That Shaped India. Ravi Shankar ji, starting with the discussion, the first question which is hovering on my mind is that, we have a constitution which guarantees protection of human rights through the domain of fundamental rights. We have Supreme Court and High Courts which are granting protection with regard to violation of human rights. Then where was the need to legislate this law, what we are discussing today, the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993?
Well, that is a relevant question. You need to understand that some of the international covenant you just mentioned in the beginning is stood embodied in the fundamental right chapter of the Constitution, way back in 1950 itself, when others had not, namely right of equality, Article 14,
Yes.
equal protection of laws, discrimination on the ground of sex, religion, faith, etc., Article 15.
Right.
Then right to life and liberty, Article 21. Freedom against arbitrary arrest or not to be compelled to become a witness against yourself, Article 20.
Right.
Conserving the cultural rights of people, the whole range of articles, minority and cultural, the right to safeguard your conscience.
Right.
So we need to salute our founding fathers that they decided to accord to ordinary Indians these fundamental rights. And read that in combination with the right they gave to ordinary Indians, regardless of their birth, caste, community, religion, or economic status, the right to vote.
Right.
They can change the government.
Right.
And that's how the Indian democracy today is stabilized. People know their power. But what was the need for this legislation was a right felt need. Namely, there must be an institutional mechanism to examine, take cognizance of the cases of violation of human rights, order an inquiry, investigation, and give suitable punishment or compensation as the case may be. Therefore, why the courts have paramount power, the constitutional court, under Article 32 and 226. But violation of human right required some investigation, some inquiry. And therefore, that mechanism is there in this law.
Right.
One question I would like to flag at the very outset, and this I am provoking a debate on this. The entire architecture of this Human Rights Act is, the state is all powerful.
Absolutely.
And rightly so. Therefore, an ordinary citizen or a human being who is at the receiving end of the state power, police or armed forces, as the case may be, or other things, must have a voice. And that voice must be heard. That is this mechanism. But today, the world has changed. Terrorists, the patrons, and others have more lethal power than the state itself. Right. At a click of a button, they kill hundreds and hundreds of people. What about the human right of the victims of terror,
Right.
of the victim of merciless killing?
Right.
Civilized society also need to reflect upon this growing menace, which I thought I need to flag in this forum when we are discussing. Because 70 साल में क्या खोया क्या पाया कानून से,
बिल्कुल
ये चर्चा कर रहे हैं ना.
बिल्कुल.
Therefore, today, this terror having a pernicious global manifestation, killing people with impunity,
Right.
from across the border or other places.
Right.
Therefore, for that matter, देश के लिए जीते तो हम सभी हैं. देश के लिए मरता कौन है?
बिल्कुल.
Armed forces, मिलिट्री पर्सनल, पुलिस वाले। तो आज कश्मीर में जो एक पुलिस वाला मारा जाता है, उसके परिवार की रोती तस्वीर हम देखते हैं। व्हाट अबाउट देयर ह्यूमन राइट्स?
Yes.
Our armed forces who are killed with impunity by terrorists or their patrons while safeguarding us against invasion of security, their body comes to the villages.
Right.
What about the human right of their family members, their children? Therefore, it is high time the civil society, not only in India but also globally,
Right.
while examining the nuances of human right mechanism, must also reflect upon this very compelling need. We need to safeguard the human right of those who are abused by non-state actors, if I can use that expression,
Right.
to their lethal power.
Right. Very well said. And picking up from where you left, if one was to go through the human rights definition, which is provided under the Act, it has two components. One, as you rightly mentioned, the fundamental rights which are embodied in the Constitution are part of human rights as per the definition. And the second part of human rights definition says that even those rights which are embodied in the international covenants and treaties are also part of human rights. So therefore, I get a feeling that perhaps international covenants had a greater role to play when this law came into being, rather than the mandate of the Constitution or the will of the law framers.
No, there I will differ with you. If you consider definition of fundamental rights,
Right.
they specifically mention the fundamental rights and dignity issues mentioned in the Constitution of India,
life, liberty,
and also
equality.
life,
Yes.
liberty, and also.
Yes.
But yes, international covenants have a point. For instance, discrimination on the ground of race is becoming a good international issue.
Absolutely.
Requires UN intervention. Fortunately, we have cases of discrimination on the ground of caste or discrimination on the ground of religion. And there is a mechanism. But there is no racial discrimination per se. But it is there in other parts of the world.
Right.
Therefore, the human rights shield is available also to a victim of racial discrimination.
Right.
Let me give you another example, how I see it. India is a country of infinite diversity. हिंदुस्तान वो जगह है जहाँ 200 किलोमीटर के बाद बोलने का लहजा बदलता है और खाने का तरीका बदलता है.
बिल्कुल.
Food habits and everything.
Yes.
Good. We have 25 plus constitutionally recognized languages.
Right.
We have hundreds of bolis and up-bolis. Now suppose the question comes that I am a small tribe in the northeast part of India, but only 10 villages speak this language. And we are losing the value of this language. Okay?
Yes.
They can quite say it is a part of a human right to conserve your language. But that is also a part of fundamental right.
Right.
You're getting my point?
Absolutely.
Therefore, in these matters also...
Yeah, you're right, because it's part of international covenant by all means. Yes.
Therefore...
Very valid point.
And I'm very clear about it. Yeah. That this great... So let me tell you the great initiative of our Prime Minister. How about Tamil students visiting Haryana? Okay. And Haryana students visiting Tamil Nadu. Okay. Or Gujarati.
Right.
Or Bihar.
Right.
Or North Indian students visiting Northeast.
Right.
You pick up Assamia, okay, or Tamil, or Telugu. Our students will also have one language, additional language.
Absolutely. Instead of foreign language, it is, very, very valid point.
And South Indian Hindi, or you can even have Assamia.
There's so much to learn within India itself. Yes.
This extraordinary initiative of the Prime Minister, fostering national unity,
right,
and invoking an interest in people of one region to respect and learn the language of other region. This is how you have to work it out.
Very, very good.
Because I always say, Hemant, human right cannot be viewed only from the point of view of a legal text.
Yes.
The text is there.
Yes. You can't compartmentalize it. Yes.
The texture is important.
Is important. Yes.
And the texture can come by the combined initiative of the governance process,
Right.
the political leadership, the social leadership.
Yes.
One of the biggest lessons of 75 years of India's independence is people know who they are and
Right.
what they owe to themselves.
Absolutely.
And in the
Real
question-
empowerment of the people.
And the question in India is not whether India is fit for democracy. India has to become fit through democracy.
Correct.
The question is not whether India is fit for democracy.
Yeah.
The question is India has to become fit through
Through
democracy.
democracy. Yes.
Therefore, human right can prosper only in a democracy
Right.
where people have their consent
Yes.
to be ruled by leaders whom they choose to rule
Yes.
or who are fit to rule.
Absolutely.
And secondly, the dignity is accorded.
Right.
Therefore, this whole architecture of human right protection is very important, which was rightly passed in 1993.
Right. Ravi Shankar ji, let us move with our discussion. If we go through the objective of the Act, which is right there at the heading, it's a very short, brief objective, which says that it is an act to constitute National Human Rights Commission and state human rights commissions and human rights courts for the better protection of human rights. So can you please tell our viewers about the constitution, composition and appointment process of these commissions?
Obviously, there has to be a proper commissioner at the national level and the state level. The national level appointment is done by a collegium of the Prime Minister,
I see.
the Home Minister,
I see.
the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha, the Speaker and the Deputy Chairperson of the Rajya Sabha.
Oh.
Obviously, Vice President, the Chairman, he cannot come. There is a collegium.
Right.
But 2-3 things are very important. They have got the authority to order an inquiry with all the statement of witnesses, etc., etc.
Right.
The right to inspect premises where something objectionable is either kept or, say, just used as a part of a conspiracy.
Right.
Next, they can also take the services of state authorities for investigation.
I see.
Therefore, inquiry, and to have the inquiry in a fair manner, investigation of requisite state apparatus. You can also hear the authorities against whom complaint is there. And thereafter you can come to a conclusion, namely that either you dismiss the complaint or you uphold the complaint. In the event you uphold the complaint, you pay compensation to the victim.
Right.
The state will have to pay as they determine the amount of compensation.
Right.
The second, the commission can direct the state to take suitable punitive measures against the officers concerned who is responsible for a violation.
Oh.
And they can also go to the court to seek appropriate remedies. And there is also a provision for special human rights courts. In many cases, one court has been assigned. You know, what is more important is, it is a very interesting scenario. Whenever a human right violation is done on a massive scale, there's already a PIL. There is so much of PIL intervention.
Right.
Many legitimate, many not legitimate.
Right.
And I am saying with some sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
Therefore, with my experience of governance, it is a very gentle and respectful suggestions for the considerations of my lords,
Yes.
that these things also need to be reflected at times. Therefore, in every state matter, if Supreme Court start intervening, then courts have other loads A and B. By itself, the court are not very equipped to handle such a workload.
Absolutely.
Therefore,
Yes.
here I am talking of public policy.
Right.
Therefore, there is a context in which I said these things. If the
Right.
court finds that there is a human right violation,
Right.
let the commission examine it.
Right. Right.
And let the commission give a report to us.
Ravi Shankar ji, returning to the concluding part of the discussion, I have this last question, and then it will be followed by a viewer's question. You know, the Supreme Court and High Court have been exercising enormous jurisdiction, in respect of matters dealing with violation of human rights. And in fact, one of the judgments, I don't remember the citation, but remember the title, Paramjeet Kaur versus Union of India, where Supreme Court said in the exercise of Article 32 that they're not bound by the limitations contained in in this Act, Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. They said that we are not bound by the limitation of time also, which is prescribed under Section 36(2) of the Act, which is 1 year limitation. So, what is the settled law with regard to the standing, stature, and effectiveness of the NHRC, of the National Human Rights Commission?
Well, first thing I would like to highlight is we are very proud of our constitutional courts, the Supreme Court and the High Courts, exercising power under Article 32 and 226. They have done an extremely good job. And in safeguarding the rights of Indians, they have been very forthright. And that's good for democracy. And judiciary must remain independent. But I would like to very gently suggest, obviously, that's your right. There is a 1 year limitation. You can say, I will even open up 5 years earlier. But there has to be exceptions in that. Because whenever there is a violation of human rights, today all the terrorists have become the biggest supporters of human rights movement. Because they want the cover.
Right.
And this question I'm flagging again. Whenever they go seeking the indulgence of the court, which they have got their right, the question needs to be asked, how many are victims of your own organization and your own goals?
Yes.
There has to be a balance.
Absolutely.
Therefore, this was not available earlier.
Right.
But
yes.
This challenge today is a subsisting challenge. Therefore, impulses should not be allowed.
Yes.
And the basic principles of law, as enshrined in the Constitution, and democratic polity must be followed. The right to articulate your view, the right to differ, the right to question is all a part of democracy.
Right. Very well said.
But, do you give democracy in the way you conduct yourself? That question also needs to be asked.
Can the National Human Rights Commission be approached by the members of the armed forces? If yes, can you please advise on the process?
The violation by the members of armed forces, action can be taken.
Yes.
But armed forces themselves cannot approach.
Yeah, they cannot approach. Yes.
So therefore, this is a very valid question to ask.
Right, right.
Suppose
Yes.
10 Jawans are killed in a bomb attack by terrorists.
Right.
Where do the children of those 10 Jawans or the widow go?
It's the same point she has made what you were articulating in the beginning. Yes.
There is a police action.
Yes.
Maybe the government will give them some compensation, etc. But if the human right institution is to be institutionalized more objectively and fairly in the light of recent challenges, these concerns will have to be addressed.